It was an ordinary evening in New York City, the kind where people were busy living their lives without giving much thought to the world beyond their immediate surroundings. Cars honked loudly as they crawled through traffic. Pedestrians hurried, along sidewalks clutching shopping bags or coffee cups, and streetlights flickered on one by one as the sun dipped below the horizon. The city buzzed with its usual energy, a mix of chaos and rhythm that made it feel alive. But then, something extraordinary happened, something no one could have ever imagined. At first it sounded like distant thunder. A low rumble echoed through the air, growing louder with each passing second. People paused mid-step, glancing upward instinctively. Was a storm rolling in? It didn't seem likely. The sky had been clear just moments ago. Then came the crackling noise, sharp and unnatural, like glass breaking under pressure. Everyone froze. Street vendors stopped shouting about discounted goods, joggers slowed to a halt, and even the cars seemed quieter as drivers leaned out of windows to look up at the heavens. And then it happened. The sky itself appeared to split open. Not literally, of course, but it felt that way. A jagged line formed high above the city, glowing faintly at its edges before widening into a massive tear. Through this rift poured an otherworldly light, brighter than any star, yet cold and uninviting. It illuminated the entire city, casting long shadows across buildings and streets. People shielded their eyes, squinting against the brilliance, unsure whether they should run or stay rooted to the spot. From within the glowing expanse emerged shapes, dark silhouettes that grew larger and more defined as they descended closer to Earth. At first glance they looked like mountains floating in the sky, but soon it became clear what they truly were. Spaceships. Gigantic, menacing structures loomed overhead, dwarfing skyscrapers and blotting out sections of the night sky. They weren't sleek or shiny like the spaceships seen in movies. These vessels were hulking monstrosities, covered in jagged protrusions and bristling with weapons. Their surfaces gleamed dully under the alien light, making them look both ancient and advanced at the same time. Panic spread faster than wildfire. Screams erupted from every direction as people realized the enormity of what was happening. Some dropped to their knees praying aloud, while others scrambled to grab loved ones or find shelter. Cell phones lit up everywhere, capturing shaky videos of the unfolding scene. Social media exploded almost instantly, flooded with posts tagged, "Dusk aliens are here" and "End of the world." News helicopters circled overhead, broadcasting live footage of the ships to millions of terrified viewers around the globe. Amidst the chaos stood Officer Marcus Reed, a seasoned cop who had spent years patrolling these very streets. He had been walking his beat near Central Park when the sky began to change. Like everyone else, he initially thought it might be some bizarre weather phenomenon. But when he saw the first ship emerge, his heart sank. This wasn't nature gone awry. It was something far worse. His radio buzzed incessantly with frantic voices reporting sightings of similar objects hovering over cities worldwide. London, Tokyo, Sydney. All of them were experiencing the same thing. Marcus tightened his grip on his flashlight, feeling suddenly inadequate. What good was a flashlight against whatever this was? Still, he reminded himself of his duty. Civilians were panicking, and someone needed to keep order. As he moved through the crowd trying to calm people down, he noticed a young boy standing alone near a lamppost. The child couldn't have been older than 10, clutching a backpack tightly to his chest. Tears streamed down his face as he stared up at the ships, paralyzed with fear. Without hesitation, Marcus approached him. "Hey, kid," he said gently, kneeling down to meet the boy's gaze. "You okay? Where are your parents?" The boy shook his head, unable to speak. His wide eyes never left the sky. Marcus hesitated for a moment before placing a reassuring hand on the boy's shoulder. "Come on, let's get you somewhere safe." He guided the boy toward a nearby police cruiser, opening the door so he could sit inside. The interior lights cast a soft glow over the child's pale face, highlighting the streaks of tears running down his cheeks. As Marcus turned back to survey the scene, his breath caught in his throat. One of the ships had moved slightly, positioning itself directly above Times Square. Its underside glowed ominously, pulsating with an eerie light. For a brief moment, Marcus wondered if the end really was near. Would humanity be wiped out tonight? Would anyone survive to tell the tale? But then something unexpected happened. From the ship's center emerged a beam of light. Not destructive, but focused, creating a holographic figure in the middle of the square. The image resolved into the form of a towering creature unlike anything Marcus had ever seen. It stood, at least 20 feet tall, with elongated limbs, a bulbous head, and glowing red eyes that seemed to pierce straight through the crowd. Its voice boomed, resonating not just in ears but deep within chests. "We are the Zorathians," the creature announced, its tone devoid of emotion. "Your species has reached a critical point. Surrender your planet, or face annihilation." For a moment, there was silence, absolute deafening silence. Then, chaos erupted once again. Some people screamed, others cried, and a few defiantly shouted insults at the hologram. Marcus watched in disbelief as smartphones captured the scene, already seeing memes popping up online mocking the aliens' appearance. Humanity's reaction was strange, unpredictable, and oddly inspiring. As the Zorathian continued speaking, laying out demands for unconditional surrender, Marcus couldn't help but notice the boy and his cruiser staring intently at the hologram. There was no fear in his eyes now, only determination. Something about the kid's bravery gave Marcus hope. Maybe, just maybe, humanity wasn't completely powerless after all. Little did anyone know, the events of this night would set off a chain reaction that would test the limits of human ingenuity, resilience, and courage. The Zorathians had come, expecting an easy victory, but they had underestimated one crucial factor: the indomitable spirit of humankind. And as the hours ticked by, it became increasingly clear that Earth wouldn't go down without a fight. The Zorathian hologram loomed over Times Square, its towering form casting an eerie shadow across the panicked crowd. Its voice was cold and mechanical, devoid of emotion, yet it carried a weight that made every word feel like a hammer striking the chest. "We are the Zorathians," it repeated, its glowing red eyes scanning the sea of terrified faces. "Your species has reached a critical point. Surrender your planet, or face annihilation." The declaration hung in the air, heavy and suffocating, as if the very atmosphere had thickened with dread. For a moment, no one moved. People stood frozen, their minds struggling to process what they were hearing. Was this real? Were these aliens truly here to conquer Earth? Or was it some elaborate hoax, a twisted prank designed to shatter humanity's sense of security? But the ships above, their sheer size, their ominous presence, left little room for doubt. This wasn't fiction. This was reality. Then, chaos erupted once again. Some people screamed, clutching each other as tears streamed down their faces. Others ran blindly, desperate to find shelter or escape the alien gaze. A few brave souls shouted back at the hologram, their voices trembling but defiant. "Go back to where you came from," one man yelled, shaking his fist. "You're not taking our home." Another woman held up her phone, recording the scene, while muttering sarcastic remarks under her breath. "Wow, great entrance, guys, really original." Officer Marcus Reed watched it all unfold with a mix of disbelief and awe. He had seen humans react to crises before: natural disasters, terrorist attacks, riots, but nothing quite like this. There was fear, yes, but there was also something else, something unexpected. Amidst the panic, he noticed flashes of humor, defiance, even outright mockery. Within minutes, social media platforms were flooded with memes poking fun at the Zorathians' appearance. Their elongated limbs and bulbous heads became the punchline of countless jokes. One viral post read, "Didn't know we were getting invaded by a bad CGI monster from a B-movie." Even world leaders seemed unimpressed. News outlets broadcast statements from presidents, prime ministers, and diplomats around the globe, all refusing to bow to the extraterrestrial threat. "Earth will not surrender," declared the President of the United States during an emergency address. "We have faced challenges before, and we will face this one together." Similar messages echoed from other nations, each vowing to stand united against the invaders. But the Zorathians didn't seem fazed by humanity's reaction. If anything, their holographic spokesperson appeared puzzled, as though they hadn't anticipated such boldness. After a brief pause, the creature spoke again. "Your resistance is futile. We possess technology far beyond your comprehension. Compliance is your only option." This time, the response was louder and angrier. Protesters gathered in major cities holding signs that read, "Take your invasion elsewhere," and "Nice try, aliens, but we've got coffee." In New York, a group of teenagers started chanting, "Not today, spacebugs." Their laughter cut through the tension, spreading a strange sense of hope among the crowd. Even Officer Reed found himself chuckling despite the gravity of the situation. Humanity might be scared, but it certainly wasn't backing down. As the night wore on, the hologram vanished, leaving behind only the looming ships and an uneasy silence. Governments scrambled to respond, convening emergency meetings and activating defense protocols long thought obsolete. Military bases went on high alert. Fighter jets took to the skies, and scientists worked tirelessly to analyze the alien vessels. Yet no one knew exactly what to do. How do you fight an enemy you don't understand? How do you prepare for a war when you can't even predict the rules of engagement? Back in New York, Officer Reed stayed close to the boy he had rescued earlier. The child, who introduced himself as Jake, remained unusually calm despite the unfolding chaos. He sat quietly, in the police cruiser, watching the ships with a mixture of curiosity and determination. When Marcus asked him how he was feeling, Jake simply shrugged. "I'm scared," he admitted, his voice steady. "But I'm not going to let them win." Marcus nodded, impressed by the boy's resolve. "Good attitude," he said. "We're going to need people like you if we're going to get through this." Over the next few hours, Marcus kept busy helping civilians evacuate dangerous areas and coordinating with local law enforcement. But his thoughts kept returning to Jake. There was something about the boy's bravery that resonated deeply with him. It reminded him of why he became a police officer in the first place, to protect people, especially the vulnerable ones. And right now, humanity felt incredibly vulnerable. By morning, the streets were eerily quiet. Most residents had either fled to safer locations or barricaded themselves indoors. Emergency broadcasts urged citizens to stay calm and follow instructions from authorities. Meanwhile, governments around the world began forming alliances, pooling resources and sharing intelligence to mount a unified response. For the first time in history, nations set aside their differences to focus on a common goal: survival. Scientists played a crucial role in these efforts. Research labs buzzed with activity as experts analyzed data collected from the alien ships. Early findings suggested that the vessels emitted low-frequency vibrations capable of disrupting electronic devices, a discovery that explained why so many phones and radios had malfunctioned during the initial encounter. Engineers raced to develop countermeasures, retrofitting existing technology to withstand the interference. Ordinary people also stepped up in remarkable ways. Amateur inventors tinkered with drones and gadgets, hoping to create tools that could aid in the fight. Volunteers distributed food, water, and medical supplies to shelters overflowing with displaced families. Social media campaigns encouraged donations and offered support to those in need. Humanity's resilience shone brightly, even in the darkest of times. In Times Square, the center of the invasion, a makeshift command center had been established. Officers, soldiers, and civilian volunteers worked side by side, brainstorming strategies and preparing for whatever came next. Jake, accompanied by his parents, joined the effort. His father, a mechanic by trade, taught him basic engineering skills, which proved invaluable when it came to modifying old equipment. Together, they transformed abandoned vehicles into armored transports, equipping them with reinforced steel plates and makeshift weapons. Despite the grim circumstances, there was a sense of camaraderie in the air. Strangers became allies, united by a shared purpose. Officer Reed found himself inspired by the collective determination. Every person he met, whether a scientist, a soldier, or a teenager like Jake, was contributing in their own way. Humanity wasn't just fighting for survival, It was fighting for its identity, its values, and its future. But the calm couldn't last forever. As the day turned to night, the Zorathians made their next move. Lights flickered across the surface of their ships, signaling activity. Then, without warning, a deafening roar filled the sky. Beams of energy shot downward, striking buildings and igniting massive explosions. The ground shook violently, sending debris flying in all directions. People screamed, running for cover as chaos engulfed the city once again. Officer Reed shielded, Jake and his family behind a concrete barrier, his heart pounding in his chest. The battle had begun. The Zorathians' attack was swift and merciless. Energy beams rained down from their ships, obliterating buildings and reducing entire city blocks to rubble. The air crackled with electricity as explosions lit up the night sky, casting an orange glow over the panicked streets below. People screamed and ran in every direction, desperate to escape the devastation. Fires erupted everywhere, filling the air with thick smoke that made it hard to breathe. The ground trembled beneath everyone's feet, a constant reminder of the power these aliens wielded. Officer Marcus Reed tightened his grip on Jake's hand as they crouched behind a concrete barrier. The boy clung to his backpack, his knuckles white with tension. Despite the chaos around them, Jake didn't cry or panic. Instead, he watched the destruction unfold with wide eyes, his jaw clenched tightly. "We can't just hide here," Jake said suddenly, his voice firm despite the fear in his gaze. "We need to do something." Marcus hesitated. He wanted to tell the boy to stay put, to keep him safe, but deep down, he knew Jake was right. Hiding wouldn't stop the Zorathians. They needed to fight back, and fast. Rising to his feet, Marcus scanned the area for any sign of shelter or opportunity. Nearby, a group of civilians had gathered around a flipped car, using it as cover while trying to figure out what to do next. Among them were Jake's parents, who nodded at Marcus when they saw him approach. "We're not going to survive this if we don't work together," Marcus shouted over the noise. "Everyone listen up. We need to find weapons, tools, anything we can use to defend ourselves." The crowd exchanged nervous glances, but no one argued. A middle-aged man handed Marcus a tire iron he'd salvaged from the wreckage of his truck. Another woman produced a fire extinguisher, which she suggested could be used to blind the aliens temporarily. Jake rummaged through his backpack and pulled out a small drone, a toy he'd been tinkering with before the invasion began. "This might help," he said, holding it up. "If I can modify it, maybe we can distract them." Marcus smiled grimly. "Good thinking, kid. Let's get to work." While ordinary citizens improvised weapons and defenses, governments and militaries launched a coordinated response. Fighter jets soared into the sky, attempting to engage the alien ships head-on. Missiles streaked upward, exploding harmlessly against the Zorathians' shields. It was clear that conventional weapons wouldn't cut it. Humanity needed a new strategy, and fast. In research labs around the world, scientists worked tirelessly to decode the aliens' technology. Early experiments revealed that the Zorathians relied heavily on electromagnetic fields to power their ships and weapons. This discovery gave engineers an idea. If they could disrupt those fields, even briefly, they might gain an advantage. Working around the clock, teams developed prototype devices capable of emitting high-frequency pulses, designed to interfere with the alien systems. These gadgets were rushed to frontline units, including Officer Reed's makeshift team in New York. Back in Times Square, Jake and his father worked feverishly to modify the toy drone. Using spare parts scavenged from nearby vehicles, they equipped it with a small EMP generator, one of the experimental devices delivered by the military. The plan was simple, yet risky. Send the drone into the heart of the alien forces and trigger the EMP, disabling their equipment long enough for human fighters to strike. As dawn broke, the streets were eerily quiet. Most survivors had fled underground or taken refuge in fortified buildings. Those who remained prepared for the inevitable counterattack. Jake stood beside Marcus, clutching the remote control for the modified drone. His hands trembled slightly, but his expression was resolute. "Ready?" Marcus asked softly. Jake nodded. "Let's do this." With a flick of the switch, the drone sprang to life. its rotors whirring as it ascended into the smoky sky. Guided by Jake's steady hand, it zipped between crumbling structures, heading straight for the nearest alien patrol. The Zorathian soldiers, tall, insect-like creatures clad in sleek armor, immediately noticed the tiny machine buzzing toward them. One raised a weapon, firing a bright red beam that narrowly missed the drone. Jake ducked instinctively, though the shot wasn't aimed at him. "Hold steady," Marcus urged, gripping Jake's shoulder. "Almost there." Finally, the drone reached its target. With a final press of the button, Jake triggered the EMP. A blinding flash of light engulfed the area, followed by a deafening crackle. For a moment, everything went silent. The hum of alien machinery, the roar of distant explosions, even the wind itself. Then slowly, the Zorathian soldiers staggered, their advanced weapons sputtering and dying. Their once impenetrable shields flickered and vanished. "Now," Marcus yelled, signaling the others. From their hiding spots, civilians emerged, armed with whatever makeshift weapons they'd managed to assemble. Tire irons swung, fire extinguishers sprayed clouds of foam, and Molotov cocktails hurled fiery trails through the air. The Zorathians, caught off guard by the sudden loss of their technological superiority, struggled to regroup. Some retreated, retreating toward their ships, while others fought back with brute force. But humanity's numbers and sheer determination gave them the upper hand. Amidst the chaos, Jake operated the drone like a pro, guiding it to disable more alien patrols. Each successful strike boosted morale, proving that the invaders weren't invincible after all. Word spread quickly via walkie-talkies and social media updates. Humans were fighting back, and winning. The battle raged on throughout the day, with both sides suffering heavy losses. Alien reinforcements arrived, forcing humanity to adapt. Even further, guerrilla tactics proved surprisingly effective. Small teams ambushed invaders using traps and explosives rigged from everyday items. In New York, Officer Reed led a daring raid on a Zorathian supply depot, securing valuable intel about their communication systems. Hackers used this information to infiltrate the aliens' networks, broadcasting messages of defiance directly onto their ship's screens. One particularly bold transmission featured a cartoon of a Zorathian soldier tripping over a banana peel, accompanied by the caption, "Still think you've got this?" By nightfall, the tide had begun to turn. Scientists analyzing data from intercepted transmissions discovered another critical weakness. The Zorathians' core reactors were vulnerable to synchronized EMP pulses combined with high-frequency sound waves. Armed with this knowledge, Earth's defense forces devised a bold plan. Fighter jets equipped with specialized weapons would target the largest alien ship, the flagship, while ground teams distracted the enemy. As preparations continued, Marcus took a moment to check on Jake. The boy sat slumped against a wall, exhausted but proud. "You did good today," Marcus said, handing him a bottle of water. "Your dad told me how much work you put into that drone." Jake grinned weakly. "Doesn't feel like enough, though. There's still so many of them." "It's enough," Marcus replied firmly. "Every little thing helps. And tomorrow we'll hit them even harder." For the first time since the invasion began, hope flickered in Jake's eyes. Maybe, just maybe, they really could win this. Unbeknownst to anyone, however, the Zorathians were planning their own counteroffensive. Deep within their flagship, commanders plotted a devastating strike that would crush humanity's newfound resistance. The battle for Earth was far from over. As dawn broke over the horizon, turning the smoky skies a pale orange, humanity braced itself for what would become the most critical day in its history. The previous night's victories had been hard-fought and costly, but they gave people hope. A fragile, flickering flame that burned brighter with each passing hour. Fighter jets roared overhead, their engines screaming defiance against the alien invaders. Soldiers and civilians alike worked tirelessly to fortify positions, repair damaged defenses, and prepare for the next wave of attacks. Officer Marcus Reed stood at the center of it all, coordinating efforts in Times Square, which had transformed from a bustling tourist attraction into a war zone. Jake, now an unofficial member of Marcus's team, sat hunched over his modified drone, making final adjustments. His hands moved quickly, tightening screws and testing circuits. Despite his exhaustion, he couldn't stop working. The boy knew that every second counted. If the EMP-equipped drone failed again, countless lives could be lost. Nearby, Jake's father helped weld metal plates onto abandoned vehicles, turning them into makeshift armored transports. Civilians carried supplies, tended to the wounded, or manned lookout posts. It was a chaotic symphony of effort, everyone playing their part in humanity's desperate bid for survival. Meanwhile, inside the Zorathian flagship hovering ominously above New York City, commanders analyzed data from the previous day's battles. They were baffled by humanity's resilience. Other civilizations they had encountered had crumbled under far less pressure, surrendering almost immediately after, witnessing the might of the Zorathian fleet. But these humans, primitive, disorganized, and technologically inferior, refused to yield. Worse still, they had found ways to exploit weaknesses in Zorathian technology, inflicting damage that should have been impossible. This infuriated the OE aliens who prided themselves on their superiority. The Zorathian commander, a towering insectoid creature named Vorthak, decided it was time to escalate. "Enough games," he growled, his voice reverberating through the ship's control chamber. "We will crush them completely. Prepare the plasma cannons and deploy ground troops en masse, leave nothing standing." Back on Earth, the first sign of trouble came just after sunrise. A low hum filled the air, growing louder until it became a deafening roar. From the underside of the flagship emerged dozens of smaller ships, sleek and deadly, descending rapidly toward the city. These weren't reconnaissance vessels like before, they were assault craft designed for one purpose: destruction. As they approached, they unleashed barrages of energy beams, obliterating entire blocks in seconds. Buildings collapsed like sandcastles, sending clouds of dust and debris billowing into the streets. Marcus shouted orders as chaos erupted around him. "Take cover!" he yelled, pushing Jake behind a concrete barrier. The boy clutched his drone remote tightly, his knuckles white. People scrambled for safety, diving into basements, alleys, or any available shelter. The sound of explosions drowned out everything else, shaking the ground violently. But humanity wasn't about to give up. In the distance, fighter jets streaked across the sky, engaging the alien ships in dogfights. Missiles streaked upward, leaving trails of smoke behind them. While most of the projectiles failed to penetrate the Zorathians' shields, a few managed to hit their mark, causing minor explosions along the hulls of the enemy vessels. Each successful strike was met with cheers from the ground forces below. On the streets, guerrilla tactics continued to prove effective. Small teams ambushed alien patrols using improvised traps and explosives. One group lured a squad of Zorathian soldiers into a narrow alley, where they triggered a rigged gas line. The resulting explosion sent shockwaves rippling through the area, taking out several enemies at once. Another team used modified drones to disable alien weapon systems temporarily, allowing them to close in and attack with melee weapons. Every victory, no matter how small, fueled humanity's determination. In Times Square, Jake prepared to launch his drone once again. This time, however, the stakes were higher. Intelligence reports suggested that the Zorathians had reinforced their shields, making it harder to disable their equipment. Still, Jake refused to back down. "I can do this," he muttered under his breath, adjusting the controls. Beside him, Marcus loaded a rifle scavenged from a fallen soldier. "Just stay sharp, kid," he said. "And remember, we're counting on you." With a deep breath, Jake activated the drone. It lifted off silently, zipping between collapsing buildings and dodging enemy fire. The Zorathians spotted it almost immediately, firing beams of energy that narrowly missed its tiny frame. Jake's heart raced as he guided the machine closer to its target, a cluster of alien soldiers guarding a key supply depot. When the drone reached optimal range, he pressed the trigger. For a moment, nothing happened. Then a blinding flash of light engulfed the area, followed by a sharp crackle. The EMP pulse worked, but only partially. Some of the Zorathians' weapons sputtered and died, while others remained functional. Nevertheless, the distraction gave human fighters the opening they needed. Armed with whatever weapons they could find, they charged forward, shouting battle cries as they clashed with the invaders. Amidst the fighting, Marcus spotted an opportunity. A massive alien transport ship had landed nearby, disgorging reinforcements. If they could destroy it, they might cripple the enemy's ability to resupply. Grabbing a grenade launcher from a nearby soldier, he sprinted toward the vessel, weaving through smoke and rubble. Behind him, Jake watched anxiously, ready to provide support with the drone if necessary. Reaching the ship, Marcus planted explosives along its landing gear. Just as he finished, a Zorathian soldier lunged at him, claws extended. Thinking quickly, Marcus ducked and swung the rifle like a club, striking the creature in the chest. It stumbled backward, giving him enough time to dive clear of the blast radius. The explosion rocked the area, sending shards of metal flying in all directions. The transport ship listed sideways, its engines sparking wildly before erupting in flames. Cheers erupted from the human forces nearby. "That's how it's done," someone shouted. Marcus allowed himself a brief smile before turning back to the fight. There was still so much more to do. As the day wore on, the battle intensified. Alien reinforcements poured in, overwhelming human defenses in some areas. Fires raged unchecked, and the air grew thick with ash and smoke. Yet despite the mounting casualties, humanity held firm. Scientists monitoring the situation from underground bunkers identified a potential breakthrough. The flagship's reactor core was vulnerable during certain phases of its power cycle. If they timed their attack perfectly, they could deliver a fatal blow to the Zorathians' command structure. A daring plan was devised. Elite pilots, including Marcus's fellow officers, volunteered to lead a suicide mission targeting the flagship. Equipped with prototype EMP missiles, they would fly directly into the heart of the alien fleet, sacrificing themselves if necessary to destroy the mothership. Ground teams, meanwhile, would create diversions to draw attention away from the aerial assault. Jake played a crucial role in the operation. Using his drone, he infiltrated the flagship's outer defenses, disabling turrets and clearing a path for the incoming fighters. The boy's hands trembled as he manipulated the controls, sweat dripping down his face. Come on," he whispered, guiding the drone past layers of security systems. Finally, the moment arrived. The fighter jets soared upward, weaving through a storm of enemy fire. Pilots communicated urgently over radios, coordinating their approach. As they neared the flagship, Jake triggered the drone's final EMP pulse, creating a window of opportunity. One by one, the jets launched their payloads, striking the reactor core with pinpoint accuracy. The resulting explosion was catastrophic. The flagship shuddered violently, its hull cracking open like an eggshell. Bright light spilled out, illuminating the sky as the colossal vessel began to collapse. Cheers erupted from the ground as people realized what had happened. Against all odds, humanity had struck a decisive blow, but the victory came at a cost. Several pilots didn't make it back, their planes consumed by the inferno. Among them was Captain Elena Rodriguez, a close friend of Marcus's. Her last transmission echoed in his ears. "Tell my family I love them." He clenched his fists, vowing to honor her sacrifice. As the flagship fell, the remaining alien ships retreated, pulling back into the rift in the sky. For a moment, there was silence, a surreal calm after hours of relentless combat. People stepped cautiously into the open, staring upward with a mixture of awe and disbelief. Had they really won? Marcus placed a hand on Jake's shoulder. "You did good, kid," he said softly. "Real good." Jake nodded, tears streaming down his face. "Do you think it's over?" "It's not," Marcus replied grimly. "But we've bought ourselves some time. And that's something." In the aftermath of the battle, survivors gathered to tend to the wounded and mourn the dead. Fires burned across the cityscape, casting long shadows over the ruins. Yet amidst the devastation, there was a sense of unity, a shared understanding that humanity had faced its greatest challenge and emerged stronger than ever. The road ahead would be long and difficult, But for the first time in days, there was hope. Hope that Earth would endure. Hope that humanity would prevail. The retreat of the Zarathian fleet marked a turning point in humanity's darkest hour. As the rift in the sky sealed itself, leaving only the faintest trace of its existence, an eerie silence settled over New York City and the rest of the world. The streets were littered with debris, burned-out vehicles, and remnants of alien technology. Fires still smoldered in some areas, casting a dim orange glow against the night sky. Yet amidst the destruction, there was an undeniable sense of relief, a collective exhale from billions of people who had stared into the abyss and found the strength to fight back. Officer Marcus Reed stood at the edge of Times Square, his uniform torn and stained with soot. His body ached from exhaustion, but his mind raced with thoughts of what had just transpired. Around him, survivors began emerging cautiously from their hiding places. Some hugged loved ones tightly, tears streaming down their faces. Others simply sat on the ground, staring blankly at the ruins around them, unable to process the enormity of what they had endured. Jake sat nearby, clutching his backpack, his young face etched with both pride and sorrow. He had played a crucial role in humanity's victory, but the cost weighed heavily on him. "Hey," Marcus said gently, kneeling beside the boy. "You okay?" Jake nodded slowly, though his eyes betrayed his emotions. "I'm glad we won, but I keep thinking about all the people who didn't make it." Marcus sighed, placing a hand on Jake's shoulder. "Yeah, me too. We lost a lot of good people today, but because of folks like you and everyone else who stepped up, we've got a chance to rebuild. That means something." For a moment, neither of them spoke. They simply watched as emergency crews worked tirelessly to extinguish fires, clear rubble, and tend to the wounded. Soldiers and civilians alike moved with purpose, united by a shared goal: survival. In that moment, Marcus realized that humanity wasn't defined by its victories or defeats. It was defined by how it responded to adversity. And humanity had responded with courage, ingenuity, and resilience. In the days that followed, the true scale of the devastation became clear. Entire cities lay in ruins and millions had been displaced. Governments around the world declared states of emergency, mobilizing resources to provide food, water, and medical care to those in need. Relief efforts were spearheaded not only by national agencies, but also by ordinary citizens who banded together to help one another. Social media platforms buzzed with stories of heroism and sacrifice, ordinary people doing extraordinary things to protect their communities. Scientists pored over fragments of alien technology recovered from the battlefield, hoping to unlock the secrets behind the Zarathians' advanced systems. Early breakthroughs hinted at possibilities beyond anything humanity had ever imagined. Faster-than-light travel, energy sources capable of powering entire cities, and materials stronger than steel yet lighter than air. These discoveries sparked a wave of innovation, inspiring new generations of inventors and engineers to push the boundaries of human potential. But perhaps the most profound change was the unity that emerged in the aftermath of the invasion. Nations that had once been divided by politics, religion, and ideology now worked side by side to rebuild. Borders blurred as countries shared resources, knowledge, and manpower. The Earth Defense Coalition, EDC, formed during the height of the crisis, evolved into a permanent global alliance dedicated to protecting the planet from future threats. For the first time in history, humanity truly acted as one. As weeks turned into months, life began to return to a semblance of normalcy, or at least a new kind of normalcy. Memorials were erected in honor of those who had fallen, their names etched into stone alongside messages of gratitude and hope. Parades filled the streets of major cities, celebrating heroes like Officer Marcus Reed and young Jake, whose bravery had inspired countless others. Schools reopened, businesses resumed operations, and families rebuilt their homes brick by brick. Yet even as humanity celebrated its improbable victory, questions lingered. Why had the Zarathians come? What had driven them to target Earth? And would they return? Scientists theorized that the aliens may have seen humanity as a threat, not because of its military might, but because of its adaptability and determination. Perhaps the Zorathians had underestimated the very qualities that made humans unique: creativity, cooperation, and an unyielding spirit. Jake often thought about these questions as he tinkered with gadgets in his makeshift workshop. Since the invasion, he had become something of a local celebrity, hailed as a symbol of hope for future generations. But fame didn't interest him. What mattered most was continuing to learn, to innovate, and to prepare for whatever challenges lay ahead. With guidance from his father and support from mentors at nearby universities, Jake developed new tools designed to enhance Earth's defenses. His modified drone, which had played such a pivotal role in the battle, served as the prototype for a fleet of autonomous reconnaissance vehicles. Meanwhile, Marcus returned to his duties as a police officer, though his perspective had shifted forever. The invasion had shown him just how fragile life could be, and how precious. He approached every interaction with renewed empathy, recognizing that the bonds between individuals were the foundation of society. On weekends, he volunteered at community centers, teaching self-defense classes and sharing stories of resilience with children eager to hear about the war against the aliens. 1 year after the invasion, humanity gathered worldwide to commemorate the anniversary of its victory. In Times Square, where the battle had reached its climax, a massive ceremony drew thousands of attendees. A stage was set up amid the newly reconstructed buildings, adorned with flags representing every nation on Earth. Speakers included world leaders, scientists, soldiers, and ordinary citizens who had played key roles in the fight. Among them was Jake, now 12 years old, standing tall as he addressed the crowd. "When the aliens came, we were scared," he began, his voice steady despite the sea of faces before him. "We didn't know if we could win, but we didn't give up. We worked together, used our brains, and fought with everything we had. And because of that, we're still here today. This isn't just a story about winning. It's a story about believing in ourselves. About knowing that no matter how bad things get, we can find a way to overcome." The audience erupted into applause, cheering loudly as Jake stepped away from the microphone. Marcus stood nearby, clapping along with tears in his eyes. It wasn't just pride he felt, it was awe. Humanity had faced its greatest test and emerged, stronger than ever. As fireworks lit up the sky that evening, people around the globe paused to reflect on the lessons learned. The invasion had taught them the value of unity, the importance of preparation, and the boundless potential of the human spirit. Earth had changed forever, but not because of the aliens. It had changed because of humanity's response, and as Marcus looked up at the repaired sky, now free of alien ships, he whispered softly, "They'll never see us the same way again." Indeed, the Zorathians, and any other extraterrestrial force foolish enough to underestimate Earth, would remember this day for centuries to come. Humanity had proven that it wasn't just a species worth conquering, it was a species worth respecting.